South City, St. Louis, Apotheosis Comics and Lounge isn't just a comic book shop. It's an all-encompassing experience for comic enthusiasts of all kinds. Not only a comic store with everything from games to apparel to their almost violently extensive collection of comics, it also boasts a fully stocked bar with arcade games. If you're not around the St. Louis area, don't panic. ShopApotheosis.com/comics and offers everything in the store as well as bundles and
Son of a
subscription
biscuit.
boxes. New to comics? Can't decide what to pick? Toss a starter box in your cart. Allow the fanatics
Oh,
at Apotheosis to
no.
create a collection of their
I'm gonna
recent
kill you,
bestsellers
Ro.
just for you. My research can be hard, but Apotheosis makes it so much easier. Be cool like me and grab your starter box today by visiting shopapotheosis.com/comics and use code comics and at checkout for 10% off your order today. That's shopapotheosis.com/comics and use code comics and at checkout for 10% off your order right now. I know I'm late. In my defense, it's Ro's fault. I don't like being late. I like being right at 7 o'clock. And I'm having to listen. Now I was all ready to go. I was confident in everything. And then Ro pops off with a suggestion that makes me think he's never heard that Lizzo song because I had the good lighting and he said it was too dark and I needed to lighten up. So it's his fault. It's Ro's fault. Hi. How's everyone doing? It's me, Danny. Remember me? Yeah. Today on Comics and Live, we're not watching any TV shows for the first time in 4 months. Look, I discovered watch parties and it was so much easier to do than actually using my brain and working for a living. Okay. It was so much easier. So we just did that for a while. But because we watched so much stuff this year, I decided what better topic for the final stream of 2024 than talking about everything we loved and hated in the movies and streaming shows. Listen, I don't like saying streaming shows. I know I have to because that's what life is these days, but it's TV, man. It's TV shows. But it doesn't feel like TV shows anymore, right? Because TV shows, I think of me in front of a big console TV with the knobs, I don't know. I kind of miss those. They were nice. They were furniture. They were real furniture. You could put stuff on them. They got very cluttered and dusty, but it's part of my childhood, and that's what I'm sticking with. But hey, before you allow me to ramble on anymore, do me a huge solid, and please make sure you hit that like button if you're new. I really hope you subscribe and ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with even more nerdy goodness. How are you guys doing? Did you have a nice Christmas? I did. I sure did. But I wasn't the only one who had nice holidays, and I'm not the only one who's going to be up here rambling on about the things they liked and didn't like. We have other people joining us. I know. I there are people that want to hang out with me. I'm just as surprised as you are. First, we have Ro from the Scarab Scuttlebutt podcast, the Podfather, the I don't know, the progenitor of the Red 5 network. Is that what we would?
Sure. Choose your words carefully, my young lady. But
Yeah, it would be nice if I thought before I opened my mouth, but why ruin the surprise?
why ruin the now? You made me hungry because I see the word Twix and I really want some chocolate and some nougat.
I
What is
can't
nougat, by the way?
nougat. It is like whipped chocolate marshmallow, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe Nick knows.
I don't know. Speaking of Nick, we have first timer to the show, Nick from Nickflix. What is up? Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me on tonight.
No, thanks for joining us. Sorry. I'm still stuck on the lighting now. The lighting is still there.
I had to bring another lamp into this room, otherwise it's pretty shadowy in here. I have one of those houses where there's no ceiling lights built into any of the rooms outside the master, and
Don't have one here either.
yeah, so I got one in the corner, and I'm like, I need another light in here. It's gonna look like my camera's not working correctly.
So, what my brain got in a real big hurry to say, and then, shut my whole body down because it was way too fast, was that when I came up with the idea for this topic and I was talking to Ro about it, there's really only one other person that we thought would be perfect to have this conversation with. And it's, I mean, movies, you know TV shows. I mean, your whole podcast is called Nick Flicks. So why
Yeah.
don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so contrary to my name, I don't cover a ton of stuff that's on Netflix. Though coming up with a podcast name, I was surprised no one named Nick ever started a podcast called Nick Flicks.
Surprising.
Yeah, it is. So when I was a guest on Rose's show years ago, and then a guest on a couple other podcasts, I was like, I should start my own. And it's a movie podcast that started with a little more of like, hey, I'm going to pick these couple of movies because they all share a same theme. And then it kind of just evolved to, hey, what's movies we want to talk about, like a Batman series, or hey, we're going to talk about Tim Burton, or I'm recording in a few days my favorite movies of 2024 podcast with my guest who it comes on twice a year, once for our favorite movies halfway through the year, and then once for our favorite movies for the rest of the year. So, there's no rhyme or reason anymore. Now it's just to talk movies, which is fun. So,
well, that's hey, sign me up. Like that's what I do all day, every day, whether anyone wants to listen to me or not. Which is why my boyfriend told me to start this podcast, because he really didn't want to listen to it anymore.
Thank you to Crusher Convo podcast. Was like, I know Nick Flicks podcast. Awesome. Thank you.
Well, that reminds me, before we go any further and get any deeper, let's say hi to the chat. So far, we have Mr. Isaac Sipe, who never, ever misses it. He never does. He's very concerned, and I'm very grateful to him for that. We have Captain Wrecked. Hello, Will. What's up? Just in time to make drinks. I'm here for it. Do it. And of course, Crusher Convo, Miss Jessie. Hello, my dear. I did not fall asleep. Ro threw me off entirely. Okay.
As I do.
You cannot distract me that's a really nice mug, Ro. That's a really, really nice mug. Like, where did you get that mug?
Exist. Could be somewhere down there. Before we get into the rigmarole, I just want to give my praises to Nick. He told the story of when he came on to our podcast, and we just had such a wonderful time talking movies with him.
Kelly.
And I'm really proud of you, Nick, for starting your podcast, sticking with it, being consistent. Asking a lot of us for help, and really, no stopping you. So it was really great to be able to kind of be a small part of your start in this arena, this platform of talking about movies on podcasts and stuff like that. So it's just fantastic. I really hope that you are enjoying it, enjoying the interaction with a lot of people that have gotten to know you through various, topics and movies and shows and things like that. So one more time, Danny, let those kids say, yay!
Well, I will say this, a little quick peek behind the curtain. The only thing I don't like about doing a podcast is once it's like, oh crap, I need to have more guests lined up, because you want to like branch out, but then you also have like a handful of people that you're like, but I know if I ask them, I could easily talk for 45 minutes with them. It's always that, like, it's like a first date. You're nervous when you have someone on for the first time. You're like, it's going to work. Is it not going to work? And in my head, I always think, I'm not going to be able to fill 25 minutes. And then we get to about 40 minutes and I'm like, crap, I need to hit a few more topics. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, look, anyone could do it. I do it on a shoestring budget of nothing. It's just networking, and do not be afraid to ask for help, because the worst someone could tell you is, hey, buzz off. I don't want to help you with
Yeah.
it. That's it. So,
Or they could tell you you're old and ugly and go, yeah, or
You
that's
know,
only girls. Sorry. Okay.
no, Ro did tell me that originally.
Oh, he did?
He was like, I was
He's
testing you,
such a
kid.
catty bitch. He really is.
testing
My
you,
God.
testing you.
And you saying about, struggling to fill 25 minutes. I know this is going to be a shock for many of you, but that's never been my issue. It's keeping it to 25 minutes is my issue.
Real
I
fast, Nick. Do you remember what your wife told when you were on
Mhm.
the scuttlebutt? Do you remember what your wife told you when she listened to
Oh
it back?
man, it's her and Ro had the same thing, but Ro didn't tell me until after I had mentioned it. Ro had me on for like a quick hit of like it's supposed to be just a few minutes, and I
Mhm.
rambled straight through for like 5 minutes, not realizing I hadn't let Ro say a thing. And then when my wife listened to it, she was like, "Nick, you did not stop talking for 5 minutes." And I'm like, I didn't realize, I didn't know what happened. And this is after I've been doing
Ah!
a podcast for like a year and some change. And like Ro was like, I didn't want to say anything, Nick, but I was like shocked that you were like not giving me an opportunity in. And I'm like, I don't know what happened. I felt like Will Ferrell in old
Could have
school.
kept on going. You
I
could
just
have
kept
kept on
going, and then all of
going.
a sudden I
Listen,
blacked out.
I started my podcast and did that for several months before I ever had a guest or went on anyone else's anything. And Rose, the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast was the first podcast I was ever a guest on. And I get so embarrassed when I think about it because I know what I did. Like afterwards, I was so nervous and anxious about it. I just went top speed, never shut up the whole time, and
But you know
just
what's funny though? It's like we had you on because you were like the expert on the topic at hand.
Wonder
So
Woman.
it's like we just let you talk. And then I was telling you before, a couple of days ago, I was telling you that like I had some notes, but there was a couple of things that you kept on like countermanding me on, and I'm like, okay, she's the expert. She's the one that knows, so I'm just going to let her talk.
You told me you and your co-host had notes, and then after like a couple of minutes, you just threw them up.
I'm
Like,
like, yeah, I
great.
guess these notes are crap.
But real quick, a couple more shout outs in the chat. We have Kelly. Hello, Kelly, and she thinks you give the best movie recommendations.
She's a buddy of mine. We go to ND games, part of a crew, but
Well, her
I do
praise
give
is
her
no
good
less
movie
valid.
recommendations. Yeah.
We have Christian Fandom Geek. What is up? We have Jamie.
CFG in
Hello,
the
Jamie.
house.
We've got some of my people from Facebook. Hello, Calibus Ren. And we have Crystal Nicole. Hello. And of course, Star Trek Man. Star Trek Man is here.
Is that his new nickname?
Yeah, that's what I'm calling him. He's
Star
like,
Trek
oh crap,
Man.
I'm typecast already.
I know.
Well, if you've been in more than one Star Trek vehicle, you are now Star Trek Man. Okay, guys. Now that the like buttons have all been smashed, yes, we've said hello to the chat. We've shared and told our friends to come hang out with us. Let's talk about movies. Let's start with some movies, okay? Because I know we have a lot to say about some TV shows. One in particular. I'll tell you what. I'll let the chat try to guess what my least favorite, what I think the worst TV show of 2024 is. I was writing my list and I could only think of one. So go crazy. Try guess which one of 2024 was my least favorite. But before we get started on that, I want to talk about what were our favorite movies of 2024. Let's start with Nick.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with one that's not it was not a big success at the box office.
Mhm.
It kind of had a smaller run anyway, but the movie Saturday Night.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
It's a unique biopic because it's just about the hour and a half before the first ever Saturday Night Live episode
Mhm.
Oh wow.
hit, and it's it's a movie that feels similar to the movie Birdman, but it's not cut together like it's one long continuous cut, but it's cut like you're following a camera through the NBC studios while they're trying to get ready for the
Mhm.
show. Everyone's great in the movie. Dylan O'Brien, he plays a young Dan Aykroyd and is
Mhm.
fantastic, but everyone is good in the movie. It's one of two movies by Gabriel LaBelle, who's a young actor, was in two of my favorite movies this year. And in this one, he plays a young Lorne Michaels, and it also has Philip Seymour Hoffman's son in it, and he's fantastic. Like everyone's great. There's
That was
no
his
big
son.
star.
I had no
Yeah,
idea that was Philip Seymour
and
Hoffman's son.
he has a moment in the movie where he's talking to Gabriel LaBelle, and he does this thing with his hand, and he kind of yells at him for a second. And I swear to God, you watch it and you like think of his dad, and it's like he embodied his dad for like 2 seconds. It's a fantastic movie. I think it's available to rent and buy on Apple and Amazon, and then it comes out. I pre-ordered because I'm a freak who still does Blu-rays and
No, good for
4Ks.
you.
I got mine. It comes out in like the first or second week of January. But yeah, Saturday night. I highly recommend it. It's really fantastic, and it's like an hour and 40 minutes, and it flies by really fast.
You know, I read something the other day because I watched it and I really enjoyed it. I loved Saturday Night Live all through my childhood. Like one of my dreams growing up was I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live at some
Me
point.
too.
Unfortunately, I'm not funny at all, so that didn't work out for me. But one of my favorite parts, and I recently read something about Chevy Chase being really mad, like saying how much he hates the movie. I'm like, well, of course he did, because it totally shows how Milton Berle cucked him in front of his
Oh
girlfriend.
my God, that is one of the best scenes. But it's funny that Chevy Chase would say that because, like, everyone has said he was such a douche. And
Yeah,
all this movie does is show how arrogant he was.
yeah,
But it's also like he's played so well by the actor who played him,
hmm,
which his name, so he's from the show Gotham.
yeah. He was the Riddler.
Yeah, Corey Michael Smith, and he's so good as Chevy Chase. And what's good about the movie is it's not just, hey, we'll do an impression of them, because this is also trying to do you're trying to play Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi before they're famous.
Yeah.
And like I think Dylan O'Brien does a great job. I think all the women in the movie who play like Rita Rutner and everyone, it's like they're all
Hmm.
everyone's just great in it. But I think everyone's playing these people at a time before they became famous. So it's not as much of doing like an impression of Chevy Chase in like the National Lampoon movies. This is
Yes.
before he was a thing. And but yeah, uh, J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle was fantastic. That scene is so good. It is the
Well,
best put down of
he
anything. Yeah.
he unzips and they make this sound, and his Chevy Chase's girlfriend just looks down, and you just know that
But
Milton.
apparently he did that to people a lot to
Yes.
show
Yes,
off that he
I
had a
heard.
ginormous dong. Like that was his. But yeah,
Oh,
it's a great scene. It's I mean you don't see it, but like it's just when it happens, you're like, wow, that was like
oh, I
really
went
whipping it out to prove
I
a
went
point.
running to get my boyfriend to tell him about it. I'm like, you gotta hear what I just watched. I believe it's true. All right, Ro. What are some of the what's your favorite movie of 2024?
You know, I'm looking at a huge list of movies, and I'm like, yeah, I saw that one, didn't really like it. Yeah, that one was crap. Yeah, that one, I looked at that one and was like, couldn't finish it. There's like a lot of crappy movies that came out this past
Uh-huh.
year.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, geez, I'm looking at, there was Argyle, there was Madam Web.
Oh, terrible.
Um, it's weird. But you know what? One movie that I really enjoyed the early part of the year was Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
I did too.
I thought it was really well done, and I think coming off of a I don't know, coming off of a string of as a frustrated Star Wars fan, when you see a movie that doesn't kind of respect the legacy of what came past, I think
Hmm.
Frozen Empire did a pretty good job of kind of respecting the characters of that franchise, and it was refreshing to see. We had Indiana Jones and I was excited for that, but at the end of the day, it's like,
Well, that was that last year?
that
Mhm.
was, yeah, but I'm still thinking about, um, respecting characters and
Hmm.
franchises. So
Right, right, right.
it's like, but I really enjoyed Ghostbusters. It was, and everybody obviously, loves that cast, and it was a surprisingly enjoyable film.
Yeah.
I agree, and I've watched it a few times actually. It's been one of the movies this year that seems to have had the most rewatchability in it for me. I like Paul Rudd's character. I like that they have integrated the actual real world marketing that existed in the 80s and early 90s for the Ghostbusters, the song, the toys, all that stuff. And when he's arguing with Egon's daughter, he's like, "Look, can I just say something? Bustin' makes me feel good." Him breaking out the lyrics, it was I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. I
Yeah, it
really
was
did.
kind of like a live action episode of like the real Ghostbusters animated show. Because I
Mhm.
enjoyed it too. I thought it was good. See, the problem is I think there was a lot of good movies this year. I think, but the bad movies, there was the bigger movies had leaned more on that side, and then you would
sure,
have like better middle tier, or you'd have a
Mhm.
movie like Dune Part Two, which delivered critically, commercially, and was awesome. But it seemed like when it was bad, it was like a Madame Web or like Argyle bad,
Mhm.
and it's like, and then it just gets balanced out. That's a part of streaming though too. Is that's usually where people wait to go see the bad
Yeah.
movies, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't pay money." Well, you kind of did if you pay for a
sure,
monthly subscription to something, but
yeah.
it's more palatable than dropping $25 to go see Argyle, and you're like, "Oh God, that
Right.
was."
And
Lord.
the cool thing about streaming nowadays, I mean, there are so many services and there are so many people making independent movies that I feel like, back in the day it was like these big studio movies, all of it was like up here and they were great, and the 80s was fantastic, and et cetera, et cetera. We had some really awesome movies coming up. Um, and then, back then, independent movies were so difficult to finance and to create and to distribute. There was no, obviously there was no streaming back then. But now I think like the pendulum has swung the other way. There's still a lot of big studio movies, but a lot of them are kind of falling short. And you've got independent filmmakers that are taking advantage of streaming and
Mhm.
getting together and making these, stories and taking risks that I
Mhm.
have found some really, really wonderful, like smaller movies that are out there that have been surprisingly good.
Well, real
Um,
quick, shout out to Jamie. Said the new Alien movie, Alien Romulus, was awesome, and it's kind of
okay,
Mhm.
like that middle tier blockbuster where they're just like, okay, you put money behind it, but you don't really put a ton, and then they made it more like a mix between Alien and Aliens, which was smart. I think
right,
Mhm.
you go back to what people love without just going, well, we'll redo the first Alien movie because the last few haven't hit the same way. It's like, no, if you give a director a decent budget and not go crazy. Like, Madame Web doesn't need to cost over $150 million. That's nuts. Some of these budgets for these
When
movies
when
that,
when you still have boom mics in the frame.
or the worst ADR ever in movies, like I don't know. I think studios need to start learning that, like, the difference between the 80s and now is in the 80s, you weren't competing with streaming services. It
right,
was you
Right.
saw a movie in theaters, or it would eventually come to
Or you
either,
wait 9
or
months
you
to a
wait,
home
year
yeah,
for
video,
yeah,
VHS.
to VHS, and maybe it would come to HBO in like the early 90s, or
Yeah.
Showtime or something. But like
Yeah.
nowadays, it's like if your movie sucks, there's too much on for people to want to drop money at the movie theaters if your movie sucks. Eh,
And
You know,
really good example of that is one of my favorite movies for the year, Godzilla Minus One.
oh yeah, absolutely,
Godzilla Minus One is a phenomenal film. It was done, comparatively speaking, on a shoestring budget
right,
compared to Hollywood blockbusters. And I think one of the most impressive aspects of it is that Hollywood, Marvel, for example, uses anywhere from 20 to 35 different VFX companies to work on a singular film, just one movie. Godzilla Minus One had 25 people total doing the visual effects for that film. And you can't tell the difference at all. It's stunning. It's beautiful. It's a fantastic marriage of traditional Japanese values and just an awesome Godzilla movie, which has definitely furthered my theory that we need to leave Godzilla to the Japanese. That's their baby. They
Sure.
need to make Godzilla movies because, I mean, to me, that's the only Godzilla movie I've actually honestly really enjoyed ever.
And there was a heart. There was heart to that story. It wasn't just Godzilla,
Oh,
bumping
was
into
that
buildings and stuff.
2023?
Yeah, it
Yeah, I was
was.
gonna.
It was
I didn't want to
23.
be a
Okay,
jerk, but it came out in
no,
December.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, that
but
was
still,
okay.
But you know what though?
it's a movie.
But what Godzilla Minus One does well is it's a
Yeah.
wartime movie about PTSD that just
Yes,
so happens to have Godzilla in it. It doesn't make
yes,
it where you're like, oh, we need a cheesy, stupid line here, 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 and here just to fill time before Godzilla comes and wrecks everything. So yeah, that movie should be the gold standard for monster movies now. Is go back to the Godzilla, the Jaws type styles of write good
right.
characters and then have them face a circumstance like a giant shark or a ginormous lizard, and then see how you like instead of
Yeah,
oh I have the ginormous lizard, now what do I do? Oh, I'll
right.
just throw in a bunch of characters no one will ever think of.
Loki, we know.
Yes, exactly.
We know.
We know
No,
those.
we were talking about budgets and I think that I just got a little too excited. So I guess I have to redo one of my first good movie. Okay.
You're
So
like my other favorite movie, Avengers Infinity War. Oh wait a minute, 2018, my bad. Sorry.
well, Deadpool and Wolverine was
Yeah.
pretty good. That definitely came out this year. And
Yes.
they did an amazing job with that. But I before that, and you guys are going to think I'm crazy because I've caught a lot of crap for this. Well, not a lot, but some crap for my
This
review of it.
actually just came today. Sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
hot
nice.
dog!
And I got my
Um,
Deadpool one, but he's too far to reach, so
this is
Here's
this
the
is going to
force.
sound wild, but I watched Night Bitch yesterday, and I really didn't expect to enjoy it. I was watching it to review it, but I really liked it. I thought it was really good, and it's a very unusual film for a couple of reasons. For mainly, it's a movie about a woman who, and this is how it's marketed, it's a movie about a woman
Yeah.
who thinks she's turning into a dog, but that's not really what's going on. What the movie is really about is it's about becoming a mom and figuring out who you are as a person while that's going on. It can be pretty well summed up by one quote from Amy Adams's character where she says, the baby comes out and they just expect you to have everything perfect and know everything immediately. And like that's it. There have been movies and TV shows about the struggles of fatherhood, you know, uh but there really hasn't been much about the struggles of motherhood and the voices of self-degradation that moms have inside their heads, the terror, the fear, the worry that you're losing yourself as a person, that person you were before you had children who did all these things and knew all these things, and how you get brain fog perpetually after you have a child. Your sense of smell increases to your detriment. There are lots of things I wish I didn't smell. Okay. Lots of things, but there's really nothing you can do about it. But I got some flack because a couple of men who've
Oh
never
no.
birthed a child told me,
oh well, yeah, I
"Oh,
haven't
well,
done that.
right. Well, how weak are you? You're weak. Apparently you don't want to be a mom. The only people who don't like the only people that like this movie are lesbians and women who regret having children. So which one are you?" I'm like, "Wow, tell me you didn't watch the movie." Without telling me you didn't watch the movie, because the character flat out says at one point, "No, I don't regret being a mother. I just need to figure out who the hell I am now." Like being a stay-at-home mom can be monotonous. You're doing the same thing every single day. You're not leaving the house, man. You're just your brain goes to mush. There's a lot of things that go along with that. Do you regret being a mother? No. Do you hate your child? No. You just got to figure out how this works now. And I feel like for the first time ever, they put that on film, albeit kind of a unique choice, the dog thing, but that kind of works itself out.
Yeah.
But no, I really liked it. I think it
And
was
originally it was supposed to be a Hulu only streaming show
mhm.
movie, but apparently the review or the test screenings did so well that they put it out to the theaters.
And it was a
And it,
divisive trailer too. I remember when it
Mhm.
came out, a lot of people were
yeah,
like, "What? What is this movie?" And you're like, "Oh, maybe you just got to watch it." Sometimes trailers, even for good movies, don't
Yeah.
totally convey what the movie is.
It's
well,
I was
one, I
gonna watch
always
that
feel
too.
that they don't cut trailers like they used to.
Mhm.
Like a lot of times, I mean, besides obviously the whole, giving away everything in a 2 minute trailer, why even watch the movie sometimes?
yeah.
But
I
there's
yeah.
a way to cut trailers in a way that you're supposed to really want to see the movie, not just, oh, I want to see the movie again because they just gave everything away those last 2 minutes.
Right. And
Mhm.
because of the trailer was cut the way it was, I went in with virtually no expectations. I really had no idea what it was really about. And once I got to watching it, some of the because you can hear some of her thoughts, like she talks to the camera as her internal monologue. And it's like, I have thought that exact same thing. Like, I feel so seen right now. I don't think I'm turning into a dog, but I feel very seen. Semper Fi Danny, Rose other Danny. Okay. Nice to meet the other Danny. Says we go from barely functioning individuals to barely functioning couples to barely functioning parents. I like movies that are real like that. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like we we don't come there really is no book to tell you exactly how to be a parent, and no one ever talks about the stuff that goes on up here, the fear of losing yourself and questioning every single decision that you make with your child, and how you will absolutely hate yourself for the rest of your life for not giving him the right sippy cup, or accidentally, uh zoning out for half a second and he falls off of his stool, or something like that. You will beat yourself up eternally for that and think you are the world's worst parent forever. And there's, like I said, nobody talks about it. You don't even really talk about it to your friends. No, being a parent is a really
It's it's a
scary thing.
thankless job
It
being a
is.
parent. So
It's thankless and it's
Mhm.
terrifying, and I really like how Night Bitch really puts that together in a consumable way. Um, go moms.
Go moms,
Go
go parents. But
moms.
Yeah.
Go
it's funny
parents.
though to me, not to go into this swerving here, but I also kind of wonder if a lot of like parenting is one of those things that, like, when people say, oh, you don't know this until you've lived in my shoes, et cetera, et cetera. But I think parenting definitely is one of those things, like, you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
no
None.
clue until you are a parent. Like when
None.
I held my son the first time, you know how when people say that, when you're about to die, your life flashes before your eyes and you see everything.
Hmm.
Well, I did it the opposite. I looked into his eyes and I saw his life go forward, and I was in shock.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a thing to behold.
And
Mhm.
one of the great things I should definitely point out about this film, one of the great things about this film is that, there's a lot of, we'll say, uneven expectations for moms, you know, um, and not every mom gets that click as soon as they have the baby. Not every mom has everything click into place parenting wise once they have that baby. Some moms, it takes a minute. Some moms deal with postpartum depression, but when that happens, there's a really huge stigma, a really big vile stigma on women that happens to, and it's a very common thing. Sometimes it takes a minute for you to find your way as a parent, and everyone needs to find their own way as a parent. Having a kid is like opening a business. All of a sudden everyone has an idea on what you should be doing. Like, everyone knows how you should be a parent, everyone knows how you should run your business. So
Well, and in our society, women tend to get more of like the you need to have the mothering touch right away, and where the men they'll be like, oh, it's dad. Dad has to learn how to be
Right.
dad, and it's
Yeah.
like we just learn together, man.
mhm.
The, I, I have two autistic sons, and no one prepares you for having kids, let alone if there's any type of issue with them.
Yeah.
That's not something that's so noticeable at birth.
Mhm.
But also, it's like anytime I've talked to anyone about to have a kid who's nervous, I'm like, look, it'll just come to you. It
Yeah.
might take a while. It could be the day
Yeah.
they're born and all. But I go, you're gonna think you're gonna screw up. The only
And you
parenting
probably will,
advice, and you
you're
probably
going
will,
to.
but the only parenting advice that has actually stayed true, no matter who I've talked to and who I've told this to, is prepare for your life to start going in blinks, where all of a sudden you blink and they're walking, you blink and they're talking, you blink and
Yeah.
they're in school, and you're like,
You blink
wait a
and they
minute,
figured
what?
out how to open their window and climb out on the roof.
You blink and you're a
Oh,
dog.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Knock on wood. I hope they're
No,
not doing that yet.
it's Night Bitch has a really subtle way of telling the audience you got to find your own way to be the best parent that you can be. You've got, and if you, let me say it this way: all a child needs is a happy, healthy parent. That's it. Happy, healthy parent. And if you're not happy, healthy, and well adjusted, that kid's not going to be. So you need to find your way to make sure you're happy, healthy, and well adjusted so you can do the same for your child. And that's what I really liked about Night Bitch. But moving on, I know I'm gonna say this a second movie, and I'm gonna say it because I know it's one of Rose's favorites too, because we talked about this. Caddo Lake. That one kind of
Yes.
slid under the radar for a
Yes,
lot of
definitely.
people. Or Lake, is it Lake Caddo or Caddo Lake? I think it's Caddo Lake. Um, Caddo Lake, fantastic film. Was it Netflix or no? It's
I
HBO
think,
Max.
yeah, Max.
Caddo
That
Lake, HBO
I
Max.
had no clue going into that movie, and my wife and I were watching it because it looked like kind of like a murder mystery, like
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, and then you get like little hints of science fiction, and I was a little worried because my wife is not into science fiction, but we toughed it out. We watched
Mm-hmm.
it, and yeah, I enjoyed it. It was different, and it was kind of refreshing.
Mm-hmm. It was that you said it, refreshing and
Yeah,
different, and it had, oh man, I you don't cry a lot in sci-fi movies, and that one had a lot of emotion to it,
it
and it
did.
was
Yeah,
sad and just beautiful. But if you guys get a chance, check out Caddo Lake on HBO Max. Just a really really good film that's gonna suck you in, very engrossing. It
yeah.
stars, what's it, Dylan O'Brien. That's that.
Okay, that's
that.
the movie, guys. I was like, I thought I
Hmm.
saw a trailer for that. I'll have to check that out.
Really good. All right, how about you, Nick? You got another?
Yeah, yeah. So here, just because I know we'll want to switch to TV because there's so
Hmm.
many to talk about. I'm just gonna run off just a few that are gonna be somewhere in my top 10. Hitman on Netflix with Glenn Powell, funny movie,
Oh,
really quick
oh yes,
movie.
I've seen that.
Uh, a cool story about a guy who's pretending to be a hitman. To help kind of arrest people who are trying to hire hitman, which is a true story. And then, like, obviously it gets fabricated, and they admit it in the movie. They're like, okay, some of this happened, and then a lot of it didn't. So just enjoy the movie. Directed by Richard Linklater.
Mm,
A movie of theirs I recommend that they did together was 2016's Everybody Wants Some, which is just a hangout movie. Great one to
Hmm.
watch. But anyway, Deadpool and Wolverine was awesome. Seeing Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together was like a special. Felt like, and it was so appropriate that it was the only good superhero movie this year. It was the
Yeah.
only one that really meant a damn. Everything else was Sony being like, we need to keep launching
Yeah.
our Spider-Verse that's failing. Wild Robot, fantastic animated movie. Wicked, I thought was great. I thought it was one of those few like oh look, a musical that was a hit because you didn't try to lie to people that it was a musical. It's Wicked, a hit Broadway musical starring Ariana Grande, who's known as a singer. Like, promote that it's a musical. It's okay, instead of like, not try to do that. And then two smaller movies that are two of my favorites: Snack Shack, which is the other Gabriel LaBelle movie, which is about two buddies in the early '90s. This movie was not promoted. I saw it on Amazon because it like dropped. It didn't really come out theatrically, but it was on Amazon and I rented it. And it's about these two buddies who are like freshman stoners, like they're kind of slackers and they're always trying to do get rich quick schemes. And they buy a snack shack at their local pool. And it's just a movie about their friendship. And there is a twist towards the end that comes out of nowhere and just like smacks you in the face.
Really?
But it's a really good movie. It's a really easy movie to get through, and it's just fun. It's just a fun kind of buddy movie. And then the other movie is My Old Ass with Aubrey Plaza's in it, and really no other big names. And it's just about this girl who gets a visit from herself in the future periodically through the movie, and I love the girl who plays the main character. I got to look up the actress's name because I'd never heard of her, but she's fantastic in this movie. And it's just a great, like, almost coming of age comedy. But it's hard to explain without ruining the movie because there's a reason why her past is coming to visit, or her present's coming to visit her. Macy Stella is the actress. She's so good in it. It's just a great movie. Again, it's an easy one to get through. It's now available for free on, I think, Amazon if you have Amazon Prime. But definitely worth it. Both of those well worth it, and made my like top 10 of the year, which is a spoiler for when I drop my top 10 podcast. But those two will be in it. But yeah, that's probably like my favorite. And then Dune Part 2 and the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes for like the bigger budget movies that I thought delivered. Those were two of them that I really liked.
I'm a massive Dune fan. I love Dune Part 2. I mean, it was a departure from the book, which usually I'm really against. I'm still getting used to the idea of how much they changed Chani, but it was very well done. Just
I did hear some people who didn't like it, though most people liked that movie, but I did hear some people were like, oh, they changed her around, but I like what they did, and I'm okay with it if you take some liberties with a character. Just you better nail your vision of it or version of it.
Right.
And so many people have not read the Dune book. So it's like, I could see the people who have read it being like, well, I didn't really like that, but I thought it was done well. So it's like, okay, I just think the movie as a whole was like, wow, you really like Empire Strike Back.
It really is cinematically just well done, objectively well done. Just a beautiful film. Ro, what else is on your list for best movies of 2024?
We watch a lot of not big budget films, but there was one on Netflix that really surprised us, called Rob Peace, and it's kind of based on a true story. It was there was a book, The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace, and it stars Jay Will. It's got Mary J. Blige. It's got Camila Cabello. And I can't pronounce the following name. Chiwetel
Ejiofor?
Yes, him. Obviously, great actor.
An actor you'll know when you see him.
Absolutely. It's a really good story. It kind of surprised me as far as movies, kind of like, what do they call them? Sleeper hits.
Yeah.
So that one was a really good one. And the other one too, I think it's still out there. Small Things Like These with Cillian Murphy. Okay. Which is a really good one as well.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, rounding out my list was Dune 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Caddo Lake. Those were my favorites for the year. I watch a lot of movies, like a lot. I stay at home. I'm retired. I'm retired from big girl jobs. Now I just talk about cartoon characters all day, and do mom stuff. But while that's going on, I'm either reading, listening to an audiobook, or I have something on TV. So I watch stuff like all the time. And I mean, there weren't a whole lot that jumped out and grabbed my attention one way or the other.
Hmm.
Everything was pretty mid. Like, look, I liked Venom 3 enough, but it didn't like, oh yay, that was great, or Beetlejuice, like, that just didn't.
Beetlejuice was so close to being great. If they
Yeah,
just contained that story more and left it there's too many side things, and I think what
yeah,
happened
too many,
was
yeah.
you cast too many people that you were like, I need to give Willem Dafoe more. I need to give Justin Theroux. And it's like, just
They
stick with one thing. And I think if they would have stuck with, I almost said Winona Ryder, not her, but her,
Monica Bellucci
no, no,
or
no,
Jenna Ortega's
Ortega.
boy.
If you would have flushed her thing out with the boy more, and that
Hmm.
was the main thing that Beetlejuice was helping them with,
Hmm.
I think the movie then could have been as
Would
good
have
as
been
the
great.
original, but instead
You.
it was like, oh, we got to pull this and this
Hmm.
and this, and then it got like I enjoyed it, but it definitely was one where I'm like, oh, if you just you did the thing in sequels where you went
Yeah.
too much more than the
If
only
they would have cut out Monica Bellucci's story, it would have made zero difference to
Mhm.
the story entirely. It,
Same with Willem Dafoe's character, who was
yeah,
great. I thought he was
yeah,
hilarious,
oh
but
yeah.
he also was not necessary.
They just put those guys in to make all these meta jokes about
Hmm.
Hollywood and stuff. But
Yeah.
you're
Well,
absolutely
and I
right.
think he's dating Monica Bellucci, so
Mm.
I get it. She's a
Mm,
bombshell. I get it, but you could have put her in the movie without being like, okay, now we have to have Beetlejuice's bride that he briefly mentions. That's not important one
It
bit.
felt like it felt like they had a rushed script.
Mhm.
They let the teenage boy and Jenna Ortega story was their main story, but they hadn't had it fleshed out enough, and they're like, well, we got to start filming something anyway, so just throw some shit in there and let's go. That's kind of what it felt like. And uh, let down for Gen X yet again. But while we are on that track, what were some of the worst movies for you?
Uh, someone mentioned it earlier in the comments. Yeah, Joker Folia Do was a big old Folia Don't. That movie.
Oh god, that
That,
was just a
that
nightmare.
that movie had no idea what it wanted to do, but then was just like, well, everything about the first one. And here's the thing. I didn't go into the first movie expecting a Joker movie. I like what they did, where it's like, hey, this is what if Taxi Driver or the King of Comedy was in Gotham. Okay, great, that's awesome. But then like what they do in the second movie makes no sense. It also it's like everything he was so sure about what he was doing in the first movie, he then all of a sudden in Arkham, where he's treated like crap, is like, well, let me try to bring it back. And it's like, no, 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 no. Keep pushing him forward. Make
It
him
was
like
it
something. It just it felt like the it felt like Todd Phillips did it because the studio was like, we're gonna overpay you a lot of money. What do you
Well,
want
did
to do?
you? Yeah, did you guys hear what he said? Basically, why he
he
did
didn't
it,
want to.
and does that sway your opinion on the film as a either a standalone film or as an accompaniment to the first film? Do you kind of accept his notion of why he did it? I mean, Danny was saying he didn't want to do it. It was
Mhm.
almost like an fu to the fans for
Yeah,
wanting him to do it. He just did not want to do a sequel to the Joker.
no.
Yeah,
And
but then
he
just don't do it though. No one's holding a gun to his head making him
Right.
do it. So I
I
hate
mean, he
that because
just
that feels like a
took the
cop
money and
out.
run.
Yeah, that feels like a cop out to my movie sucks, and now I'm going to tell everyone, well, it was my big fu to them. I'm like, you're not going to waste all that time that it takes to do
Mhm.
a movie like that because you're like, I'm going to show to these fanboys because your movie made $1 billion. You won.
Hey,
You
you want to
already
go,
won.
if you want
Like,
to be all artsy and creative, then make something new.
yeah.
Go
Take it
make
in a
something new.
direction that no one's
Don't
expecting instead.
don't
Was he
take.
under contract, or the studio just say,
I think
here's
he
here's
was
another
under
boatload of
contract.
money? Because that's why,
I don't
if
know
he was
because the
yeah, if he
movie
was
was
under
at the
contract, then I can understand why he said, you know what, I got to do something. So this is what I'm going
yeah,
to do.
but it just feels like it feels like that's a way of like it's like when a studio movie bombs and they want to blame like the Madame Web and Craven stuff and the studio execs like the press was just too negative about Madame Web. I'm like, no, your movie sucked.
It
Nick
was just
Nick keeps saying that in the French way.
Yeah,
Madame.
Madame Web, Madam Web, whatever. It's a bad movie, but yeah, I just think Joker 2 could have been really cool with what they
Joker
wanted to do, and they just
Joker 2 was
it was
just
boring too.
offensive. It
Yeah,
was
it just was
just
boring.
offensive.
It's
And
offensive.
and like everything about it was just insulting and offensive. Like if you want to go make an art house piece, go do that, but create your own characters and shit. Don't
Yeah.
pull up a well-known character from that's almost 100 years old and make him you
That
can't
barely broke even.
you can't
Yeah.
relate to the Joker. You can't. You're not supposed to. It's like trying to
Mhm.
relate to the Sith. You're not supposed to. They're
Wait
supposed
a
to be
minute.
bad
Relax,
guys.
relax, Danny. Relax, Danny. I relate to the Sith, okay? So just relax. See? Look,
Oh, he's not.
there's one over my shoulder here.
I'm trying to get him to talk. There he goes. But that's the thing. These characters were created as villains for a reason. They're supposed to be an example of what not to do, how not to be. Making them relatable tears them apart to the to the very core, and just the horrible stuff that happened to him in there, and the Harley Quinn they had, just oh god, it was just terrible start to finish. And if I was Lady Gaga, I would be firing my agent like toot sweet. Like, no, you're out of here. I'm
Is
done.
everybody talking French today? Lady Gaga? Madame Web? What the hell? What's going on here?
Just to piss you off.
Venom, The Last Dance.
Yeah, Pool Man. God bless Chris Pine, his directorial debut or whatever. I made it 5 minutes and was like, out. Nope, I'm out. I turned it off. It was just boring.
I remember in the
Boring
late
messages.
I remember in the late 80s when there was talk about not streaming services, but like extra channels, and how the digital spectrum of the big three were going to split off, and we would be able to
Mhm.
have more content to enjoy, to sink our teeth into. But I think it's
To
almost
enjoy.
right. But I think it kind of fell flat, because we have not only do we have more channels to watch movies on, but we just have more crap to tune into. It's weird. It's obviously that we can choose which streaming platform we have, but again, I'm like looking at the list of movies, and I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, that sucked, that sucked, that sucked. It's so
Yeah,
weird.
and oui, je parle français assez. Like,
What?
just
I
enough.
don't know. I don't know what you
Just
said.
enough.
Well,
And
I think what streaming has done is I think it's helped out TV and really hurt movies because look at how many big name stars now are starring in great shows or a
yeah.
Sure.
mini series. And I think studios are either just relying on IP too much, and then they're doing things like with the Sony Spider-Man universe where it's like, well, when Marvel does Spider-Man, it's great. So we're going to do the villains of Spider-Man, which makes no sense because no one wants to watch a Craven movie or a Madam Web movie. Uh, and even the Venom ones have increasingly went down in box
Yeah.
office, each one, and ratings for them too. And it's like, but when you go to like Sony's TV is way better, or like, hey, look, HBO Max is killing it with their
Yes, they are.
shows. But the
To
difference
be
between
fair, HBO always
but
has.
HBO always has, but now they have even more because now now it's an actual service, not just a hey, come
Right.
add us to our cable package and we'll have the 8 channels listed, the one HBO Spanish, the one HBO Sports, and then the 4 other HBOs. It's like now you could watch these whenever you want, and there's
Mhm.
shows now they could do even more shows, but they're not like Netflix, where Netflix's issue is they greenlight everything. So they'll throw 30 shows at you
Yeah,
every
they do.
week, and for every Squid Games or every like great show of theirs is like 15 shitty ones, but that
Mhm.
people forget about because it's all you watch it all in one day and go, oh, that
Look,
one was awful.
the
But you know
you
what? You can't knock it because Netflix up to
No,
now has been the only streaming service that has earned a profit.
exactly, but that's
Mhm.
because well, but what would hurt that what would help them is if they stopped doing $250 million movies and just limited how many big budget movies they want to do that are crap, that they're just now the extraction ones are actually good with Chris Hemsworth, but they do throw a
Yeah.
lot of money, like the one Red Notice movie with The Rock. They spent like $300 million on that, and that
Yeah.
movie's awful. No one cared about it, but
Yeah.
it's streamed well enough for them. But I think Netflix has been around the longest,
Right.
and they'll always be, because they started the whole, hey, look, our shows now stream. We went
Right.
from being you rented movies through us to now,
Mhm.
look, we had the
Mhm.
first streaming show, and people just don't want to get rid of it because they also will always have movies on there. But
Sure.
yeah, I think Netflix though would be even more profitable if they didn't throw money at every single show and greenlit
But
every.
you know what, though? Here's the thing about that. Netflix has so much content, they are able to recoup that money by licensing it to other services
Yeah,
across the Atlantic.
that's true. Yeah.
So it's I want to say that they know what they're doing. I think Disney, this second quarter or third quarter of this year, has started to report profits. The first time in a long time since the Mandalorian, the first season. So I want to point something out that Semper Fi Danny is saying. Apple TV has consistently good programming,
Yes, I do.
but they
Yes.
don't promote it. Like
No.
I have to go into Apple TV all the time and kind of scroll through, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Oh my god,
Or
this is really good.
I just tell Ro, "Hey, go watch this."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Apple TV, it's the only thing they don't do well is promote their content. Whereas Netflix doesn't really need to, because Netflix is so, again, Netflix is Star Wars, and Apple TV is like a franchise that's just trying to get their legs underneath them, and they're like, okay, we kind of are
Dune.
doing, yeah. Well,
Netflix is like Coke and Pepsi. Coke and Pepsi
that's a
doesn't
better
have
example.
to.
Yeah. No,
They
they
don't
don't
have
have to
to
market.
advertise.
Whereas Dr. Pepper did. I worked for Dr. Pepper. We were always third fiddle to Coke and Pepsi, so
Well, look,
we had to push for our.
part of the problem that we are having today is that the studios, the executives, okay, the people that are multi-billionaires, think the rest of us are stupid. They think we're stupid and they treat us like little kids. And that's what they've been doing. They're just throwing snacks at us like, "Oh, well, they'll eat it." Why? Because they have to. Like, I'm the parent. You eat what I give you. And I think lately, especially this last year, we've kind of shown them like, no, I'll just go hungry. I've got a lot of old stuff I've been saving. I'll
Well,
just nosh on some early 2000s, late 90s sci-fi and be
yeah.
done with it.
Well, Netflix though is now kind of too big to fail, because now it's like they're going to have wrestling on their platform. They have NFL games now. Like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but Netflix will still always do what they want to do because they're just too built into the American television zeitgeist for people, because even people who don't stream stuff have Netflix. It's almost like having Amazon, yet again, Amazon's another one that doesn't, I don't think, promotes a lot of their shows like they should, but everyone has Amazon now. And even they're not even like I don't know if they're a top 3 streaming service in terms of
I
the
and
popularity of their shows are, but
Dave
everyone has Amazon.
Dave has
Mhm.
a good question here. Does Amazon Prime have the best quality content for streaming? And I'm going to have to say no,
No, I
because
think it's
man, they have put out some stinkers. They put out this show last year called The Power that I just want to punch the person in the face who came up with that steaming pile of crusty dog
Oh, is
crap.
that
Like,
is that the cop show?
no, the Power is about women and girls all over the world suddenly develop these powers and men don't, and it's just go let your
Isn't that real life?
oh no, this was just real life has way better scripting than this did. John Leguizamo was in it. um Muriel from Muriel's Wedding. That's she'll always be that to me. I can't think of her name, but she's in it. It was just really, really bad. It was look, this was 100% woke Hollywood movie. That's all there is. There was no substance to it, no character development, nothing. It was just
And it's
women
why
power.
and it's why only a streaming company would promote it, because it definitely didn't get a
It was
theatrical release, like,
well, it was a TV show.
or a TV show,
It
yeah.
was a series, and it was bad. I watched the whole thing just
Hmm.
so I for the education, but it was just horrible. So I can't say that I give Prime top top tier content on that one.
It would
I
probably
I
be
really
between
think it's
HBO and Apple.
Apple is a sleeper, man, and
Yeah.
they're not marketing like they should. And that, you know what, I'm really not that mad about it because they're spending that money on the shows,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
which is where it really belongs. And let me tell you, For All Mankind is one of the best shows of the
Oh,
decade. It
I
is
missed it. I don't know what year it came out. When you told me about it, we were watching it, and I just
Mhm.
kept on watching it.
It's
That
on my
You
list.
that
texted me.
yeah, that month I must have gone to bed at like 3, 4 in the morning because I'm like, oh
Mhm.
my god, what's happening? And then I'm like,
It's
3 seasons already. I'm just finding out.
it's
Yeah.
so good. I liked C with Jason Momoa. I think that's the best thing he's done. I still believe he dressed himself from his closet as he does in all films for
Mhm.
that. Severance is top tier amazing. It's a Ben Stiller vehicle. It's his like he's the executive producer, he's the writer. It's starring Adam Scott. Amazing, amazing show. Pure sci-fi. I mean, it's wonderful. Highly recommend. So I'd have to say HBO and Apple Plus are really killing it as far as high quality TV shows. But back to worst movies, I have to say on my list, this is my worst movie list. Okay, The Crow.
Oh,
That was offensive. It was just look the Crow comic book. The man wrote that book because his fiance was killed by someone who was drunk and high, and you really get that throughout the book. He is saying drugs are bad, kiddies, don't do them. Drug dealers are the devil, stay away from them. The Brandon Lee movie really demonstrated that. You really felt that. This movie, the heroes are the junkies. The drugs are great. Um it was just really offensive to the original source material. Everything
mhm.
about it was terrible, from writing to production, all of it. Just an absolute waste of film. Mega, how do you say it?
You mean out
Mega,
of his prime, over the hill, Francis Ford Coppola hasn't done a good movie in like 30 years?
Megalopolis. That's
Yeah.
it. And this was supposed to be, I've been working on this for decades. You have? Where? It's,
Yeah, he also
uh,
did the thing that some out of touch directors who know they've lost their fastball do, where they blame political society on why their movie failed, and they're like, "Well, we used actors who were canceled." Look, I love Shia LaBeouf as an actor. He's a nut job
it was
who
a
has a
terror.
lot of who's done a lot of bad stuff that he's admitted to. I go, that's why he was canceled. It had nothing to do, because he's like
He's a good actor. You
he's a
had
good
good
actor, but
actors,
you had
but
good
you did,
actors, but you
it was a
and John
terrible,
like John
terrible
Voight.
script.
He's like, well, John Voight's been canceled. No, he's not. He's just old and not the same actor he was 30 years ago.
He's a
Like,
conservative, and
yeah,
that's why he's not getting work. That's
uh,
why John Voight's not getting work.
I think it's more because he did roles like Anaconda, and he's just a little.
But
But
yeah, like I
but
get
also
what you're
like
saying.
but like
But
no one went into Megalopolis like, oh, it's because of John Voight and Shia LaBeouf. I'm like, it's because the movie looked bizarre as shit and
it's
like had no
so
sense.
long and just drags out, and it's weird and boring, and just weird and boring. That pretty much sums that movie up. Argyle is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. That whole she's skating on oil on concrete and shooting people, just no. That you marketed it as Henry Cavill is in it. He's in it for like 5 seconds. It just lame. Borderlands, we all know that movie was awful. That was terrible. Poor Kate. She should fire her agents as well. Joker 2, Madam Web, and Craven. Look, Madam Web. Oh, Madam Web, Madam Web, Madam Web. Uh, he was with my mom in the rainforest when she was researching spiders before she died. Boom mics in the frame. Horrible acting, horrible
That was a
writing.
branch, damn it. That was a branch. You
Uh,
know, I actually did.
Craven.
I did
God.
not hate Madam Web as much as the rest of the internet. It was okay. Now you can insert the crickets now. Crickets,
Oh,
cricket
I
sound
think I've
effects.
got some of those actually. Let me see.
But have you
uh,
seen Jennifer Lopez in Atlas
oh,
this
that's
past year?
terrible too. Yeah, that was just
Speaking of, but like I said, I'm looking at all the list. I'm like, yeah, that was bad. That was bad. That was
mhm.
bad. It was really bad.
Spaceman with Adam Sandler. I thought that was going to be really good,
I
and
don't like Adam Sandler.
it was just boring. It's so boring.
Yeah.
Forgot that one
And
came out this year.
yeah, like is that spider real? Is it is his mind? Is it an alien? I'm so confused, and it never really gets explained. It was just it's lame. It was so lame. I didn't care for any of those movies, and I continue to make fun of them. And
Rebel Moon.
here's yeah, I was getting ready to see. I was getting ready to say I'm
Well,
going to. I have a lot of people that are huge Snyder fans. I'm a Snyder fan. I like Snyder's
Hmm.
movies, but I felt like Rebel Moon was the biggest pile of pretentious stuff I've ever seen in my life. Like it just insisted upon itself. He tried way too hard. He tried way too hard with that film. There wasn't enough. There just wasn't enough substance in it to make it a really good film. And then he fills it in with all these super dramatic, pretentious monologues. Like for fuck's sake, like I can't even get through it to review it. This is just too boring to me. The visuals, they're great. The production quality is very lovely. I like that. And you had something there, but you just didn't let it gestate. I don't know. It just
see,
didn't
I'm
work.
I'm with Loki on this on his comment. I'm not a
Mhm.
Snyder fan at all, and I think he's just a better version of Michael Bay, but his style annoys the crap out of me. You don't need to slow mo every action scene for 5 extra minutes. Like, I just don't like Schneider. I always thought his movies were like that, where I'm just like, oh, great, here comes the slow motion shot for the 50th time in the movie. And I've never been a fan of his style, so I'm not shocked that him trying to do also, what the hell were they thinking? Either make it rated R or make it PG-13. But if he wants to do a rated R, just do a rated R. Because
Why did you need a director's cut?
cut. Yeah,
He went on and on with every single press junket saying how Netflix gave him carte blanche. Then why
Hmm.
the do you have a director's cut? How is that even
basically, you
possible?
told everyone watching, don't watch the PG-13 version they're about to drop on Netflix because it's not what I wanted to do.
Look,
And then 6 months later, I'll drop the version I want. And I'm like, why don't you just drop your version then?
Yeah.
Because
I don't need to see that much boning. Okay, I really don't. Like eventually we'll all just be watching porn in movie theaters. It's excessive. And that's all his director's cut was more boning. So it didn't do it for me. And I have dear friends that absolutely love those movies. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, Sil. I can't stand it. I don't like it at all. But
I'm going to defend Zack Snyder a little bit because I absolutely loved Watchmen. That was a
yes, yes, I did
genius
too.
film. I loved 300, and I know
Yes.
300 has a lot of slow motion, but I think stylistically, I think it was crafted in such a way that it's probably one of his better works when it comes to his personal style. Legends of the Guardians of Gahul was great for kids. I read that those stories to my son when he was little, and Man of Steel. I love Man of Steel. I loved his take on Superman. And
Yeah.
y'all can go fuck yourself.
My
Oh,
only pushback row would be then he's like Tim Burton. He was good 15 years ago and then hasn't been able to make a good movie. It's like certain directors hit like a style and they're good for a small window, and then when it's like, well, what do you got next for us? Well, I'm just going to do the same thing in every single one of my movies. And I feel like, yeah, The Watchmen and 300 are I'm while I'm not the hugest fan of them, I get why people really love those movies. But then outside of that, you know, like Man of Steel is hugely debated because you took a character who was always portrayed one way and did it different, which kudos to you for trying, because we don't need to see the same character portrayed the same way every single movie, or then what's the point of doing it? But I just don't think he's done a lot in the last decade where I'm like, oh yeah, I just know when I see a Zack Snyder on the bill for a movie, you're like, there's going to be probably 30 minutes too long because so many slow-mo shots are going to happen where you're like, you don't need to slow-mo this.
I always
And
think
Michael Bay
of
does that too, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, you guys need to slow-mo everything.
I always think of this episode of Family Guy where Peter's talking about The Godfather and he doesn't like it, and he just keeps saying, it insists upon itself. And they're like, what does that mean? It insists upon itself. And I didn't get that at all until I saw Rebel Moon. I'm like, oh, that's what that means.
You know, after this
means.
stream tonight, I'm going to go out and watch Sucker Punch. So,
oh, my
F
son
y'all.
loves that movie. Dave, and my son love that movie. I think I know why, but they like that movie. So we've talked about the movies we loved and we hated in 2024. What about TV shows? What are some or streaming shows? What are some of your favorites when it
I
comes
think
to series?
there's only like 2 or 3 that have been gangbusters all year. 2 or
Yeah.
3 streaming shows on the small screen that everybody has been talking about for the last 12 months. And I think obviously one of them is Penguin.
Oh yeah. That is top of my list. Amazing show. Well done.
That was a huge flex for Matt Reeves and HBO to go, we could make and they did it the right way. They took a villain who in the movie he was in wasn't in it much, so we didn't really have a huge thing on the Penguin. We just knew, we're like, oh, he's a gangster. He's like the right-hand man of Carmine Falcone. And Colin Farrell did the right thing. You shine in the 15 minutes of that movie that you're in.
Yes.
And they're like, let's give him a show. And at first you're like, wait, they're going to do a show about, like, what is it going to be? And then they just smack you in the face in episode 1 and you're like, oh, it's what if The Sopranos was in Gotham.
Yes.
More brutal. And you're like,
yes.
Oh yeah. And I didn't care that Batman's not in that. Spoiler alert. He's not in the show.
Yeah.
Except
you didn't
the
need
bat
him.
symbol at the very end. But you didn't need him because Batman wouldn't necessarily be investigating 2 mafia families fighting, because they just had their river flood half of Gotham.
Yeah.
And he also had the living crap beat out of him when he overtook the bad guys at the end of that movie. So it's not like Batman's, he's not at 100%. There's a lot of chaos going on in Gotham, and this is all through a family warfare. And it's so damn good. It also has one of the saddest deaths of any show.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil who dies, but it's just the moment it happens, you go, that's right. This is a show about a villain.
Right.
Damn it, though. God, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Hey, kudos to Colin Farrell. The man is a beast. You have no idea how difficult, how much suffering is involved wearing that much prosthetics.
Yeah.
For that.
And he's in like every scene.
Almost
every episode. Minus maybe
he's,
one episode that he's in half of it. But like,
he's wearing a full suit, full everything. And it's so impressive. If they do not win the Emmy for best special effects, best makeup, I am rioting, because that's clear conspiracy against that artist. That is some of the most impressive special effects work I've ever seen. Every time I watched an episode, I was texting Brian, like, have you seen this? Like, we would send each other pictures back and forth, like, I can't find a seam. Like, if you saw this out in real life, and they tested it. Colin Farrell went out to Starbucks.
Was that a yeah, that's fantastic. Was that
Mhm.
his palette cleanser from the Ahsoka forehead makeup shot that you sent him?
Oh God, I love.
Here,
You know what I just sent him? I sent him the picture of Nicholas Holt holding Bill Skarsgård, his prosthetic penis
Mm.
from Nosferatu. I sent that to him, and I said, I gotta say, it's smaller than I expected. And he said, it's cold. Leave him alone.
which by the
But
way, I just saw Nosferatu today. People made way
I
too
haven't
big of
seen
a
it yet.
deal of showing his face. It's literally a second, and it's not even like it's not like in your face like Mark Wahlberg at the end of Boogie Nights. Like it's
I'm a
just
bright shining star.
yeah. Let me ask you guys this though. Uh, the thing about Penguin, which was so good too, is there was no
Mhm.
filler episode, which sometimes happen,
Right. There were
especially in
none.
streaming shows. Do you think that's because it's not a binge show and they know it's a weekly show, so they know we need people talking every week? We have the story. Don't waste an episode on. Well, we'll throw this in because we know if we drop 10 in the same day, whatever. Like the week to week shows have to be careful with dropping fillers because you want that water cooler moment as much as you could get it if you can get it.
Hold on. Hold on.
Victor, Victor.
Data from Star Trek, especially for an android. That's a
Yeah,
lifetime.
yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, I think they really knew they had something. So they just
You know, did you guys watch the behind the scenes vignettes after the episodes? Because
Yeah, I always watch those.
you get some really great insight into the writers' room, the executive producers, the showrunners, as far as their approach on the show. And I think it's something that I wish other shows, not going to say who, I really wish that other shows would take that approach. You know, the Stranger Things has kind of the same approach, you know,
Mhm.
just something that is planned. I mean, the Penguin was planned out perfectly.
Yes.
The writers took the characters and wrote them with respect and moving the story forward with each character. Everybody had
Mhm.
a time to shine. It was just an incredibly well produced series,
Yes. Top
and
to bottom.
from top to bottom, it was
The
incredible.
the music was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Introduced a whole new generation or a whole new audience to Saint Vincent. Such a good song to end that episode right on the. It's so good. I need to stop doing that because no one hears what's going on in my head. Remember that, Danielle. Yes, Lower Decks is really good. Row, you will hate it, so don't
I
watch it.
know. I heard.
You will absolutely hate it, but it's a really good show. Um, my list for good shows are Penguin,
Yeah.
Shogun,
Hmm.
Skeleton Crew is definitely on my list.
Oh,
Yeah.
X-Men
wait,
97.
really quick, Skeleton Crew.
Mm,
Is that the biggest surprise of the year?
huge
Because
shock.
From
Look,
yes.
like
no
like
one is more surprised than me
no.
because let me tell you something. I've told everyone this since it happened, but last February, I was out in Burbank and I met some of the people that were working on the show. They thought I was actually in the business as a makeup artist. Like, technically, I guess I am now, but that's neither here nor there. Focus, Danielle. So anyway, they thought I was a professional and we were all talking shop, so they just spilled the beans. They were working on Skeleton Crew, and when asked like how's that one, they were just like, no, not good. Dave Filoni was showing up on set and he was pissed, complaining about George Lucas not knowing things or where things were and throwing chairs. Like, he was really upset. So I really was not expecting the show to be any good. Flash forward to a month ago, I start watching a show. It's amazing. It makes me feel like I'm 8 years old watching Ewok Adventure all over again. And come to find out, between me and Star Wars Meg, we kind of put our heads together and discovered why Filoni was throwing a fit on set. It was because they wanted to use some of the old stock footage from Star Wars Holiday Special, but George Lucas hates that with every fiber of his being and has either buried or destroyed all that he possibly can of the Star Wars Holiday Special. So they had to make those little hologram things all over again. But I was told by people who worked on the show that it sucked, that it wasn't going to be any good. But as I've told Ro, that was that was almost 2 years ago. So they could have changed all kinds of things.
And it did get delayed though too, which made me worried because I'm like, oh crap, now they're pushing it.
Yeah, and I think everything got delayed a little bit. For strike and pandemic.
Maybe the writer's strike actually helped this show.
Could be,
but also look, it also feels like because Acolyte bombed, they were like, let's not really promote Skeleton Crew as much as we should. And then like it's a kid's show, but it's the closest thing to makes you feel like Star Wars as The Mandalorian did. Because Andor's great, but Andor is like adult Star Wars that has that doesn't feel like Star Wars. Whereas like this feels like a happy medium of like
this feels like Star Wars.
Yeah, this feels like if you're a kid watching Star Wars. Because it's hard to do that sometimes as adults, to go back to like, you got to remember, ultimately it should be for kids too. And like, this is like, here's Goonies in space. And I think it's worked. So, I mean, we're 5 episodes in. I think it's been good. I hope they nail the finale. Cause right now I'm like, I was so surprised at how good this show is.
Yeah. So, please stick the landing on this.
Yeah. I really hope they do, because that's why it's hard to say, like, it's it's on my best list too, but it's also like a to be continued. Cause I hope it nails the finale. Cause that's always the hardest part of any show, is like, how do you end the season?
Right.
Or the series, depending on if it's going to last.
So, but yeah. Ro, what else is on your best shows list?
I just had, hold on a second. What did I have here?
Oh, Three Body Problem is also on my list, and everyone should check that out.
Three Body Problem. I've heard
that's good. I've heard that's
good. No, thank you. It's executive produced by Ryan Johnson, so that's banned in my house.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay.
Sorry. Not gonna do it.
What do you have against him, I wonder?
No. I mean, there's some people that are in the chat that I would love to kind of obviously Skeleton Crew. Taco Cat is saying Skeleton Crew.
It's got a lot of good reviews.
Andor, obviously Ted Lasso, Skeleton Crew, Reacher Tracker. Let's see what else.
Technically Ted Lasso and Andor were last year or 2 years ago, but
I'm trying to go up. Shogun, yes, fantastic. There's a question by Loki. There was no Star Trek this year, right?
Just Lower Decks.
Right, but no actual Star Trek.
No. And it's actual Star Trek. Stop. It's really good. It's Lower Decks is like a nostalgia fest. Is what it is. It's just a nostalgia fest for Trek nerds, and it's just it's fun. I love it. But I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of debate on what the worst show.
Oh, real fast. Sorry. Before you get there, I also saw it was on Apple TV. Presumed Innocent was really, really good.
Oh, I will have to add that to my
list.
Also,
before we get to worst, can I quickly go over my favorite? Because there's...
Yes.
Okay, really fast. So obviously, I feel like everyone should have Penguin as one of their favorites, or you just don't like good TV. X-Men 97 was awesome. I think that came out of the gate strong. Again, no filler, just bang, bang, bang for 10 episodes. I enjoyed how Bad Batch Season 5 ended. I thought that was a good finale. Only Murders in the Building, one of the consistently funniest shows on Hulu, which Hulu kind of, now that they've bundled with Disney, has helped them, but like, they just like, hey guys, we're here too. We have shows. But Fallout was good. The Cape Crusader, the Batman show. But then I can see best show of the year, comedy or drama, is Shrinking Season 2. I think Shrinking on Apple TV Plus just every episode is great. I think they
Yeah.
get. I think they
Never
somehow
watched
Characters
it.
are great.
through the character. It's Look, I love Harrison Ford, and everyone loves him as Han Solo and Indiana Jones. I think the best he's ever done in his career is in this show. It
Yeah.
is like it is.
Surprisingly well.
It is so good, and it's like I wish Harrison Ford had done more roles like this in his prime because he's so goddamn funny.
Yeah,
Right.
he
In this
really is
show,
funny.
it works because he's 80 and could be this like gruff character, but
Right.
it doesn't feel like you're like, oh, him milking it because I needed to get some money. It's like, no, I love. You could tell he loves this show and loves
Good
Yeah.
the
for him.
character.
I'll
And
have to check it out.
yeah, it's
I've not watched an
Yeah.
episode, but X-Men 97 is definitely one of my favorite shows of the year, as well as Dune Prophecy. And I'm telling you this as a massive, massive Dune fan. I've read 10 of the Dune books. And as far as adaptation, Dune Prophecy is the best adapted live action Dune there is. It's as close to the books as you can possibly get. It is absolutely phenomenal. We did a whole watch party for it. It just really well done. Emily Watson and Travis Fimmel are absolutely riveting on screen. It's some of Mark Strong's best work. I highly recommend it. Production quality, special effects, costumes, cinematography, set design. It's all absolutely just 1,000%. They really, really went all out on the show, and it really, really shows. So that's definitely, I mean, probably in my top three. I don't like just picking a one, but X-Men 97, Dune Prophecy, Fallout was good. Three Body Problem I really like, despite it being Ryan Johnson. The Penguin, Shogun. I mean, there was really some good stuff streaming wise, but unfortunately,
There's also
there's some really bad stuff, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of like I could only really come up with one, and you guys got it. You picked exactly what it was. I mean, I think it's everyone's least favorite show of the year. I tried to scroll back through the chat to find someone saying it, and I can't find it. So it's The Acolyte. I mean, come on. The Acolyte was
oh, that's
just
right.
The Acolyte was just an absolute, just a huge miss for Star Wars and Disney. They focused on one thing and one thing only, and unfortunately for us, that one thing was not substance whatsoever. Look, I'll give it to them. It looked like Star Wars. The production design, the set design, was very nice. Um, except, Roe had a good point that like Ahsoka's ship, everything looked shiny and clean and brand new on the inside. I mean, maybe she's a neat freak. We don't really know that about her, but
I miss that lived in universe that George Lucas showed us.
yes, but it was just shite. It
yeah.
was just, the writing was terrible. The dialogue was clunky and awful. The plot, what plot, who needs a plot? We'll just toss it out and make a new one, next episode, no big deal. Look, if you're going to do space witches, if you're going to do space magic, do space magic. We thought that's what we were going to get. We thought we were going to get more lore about the dark side of the force. Instead, we just got creepy Darth Plagueis for a half second looking out of a cave. Like, was he
That was
there the whole time?
that was the least of that show's problems.
Right.
I mean, Brad and I were very excited about The Acolyte before, any of the previews came out because, as you know, we love at least I do, I love my Star Wars dark and moody. So it was something that I was like really looking forward to, but there was a story in there that it was just not presented in a way that hit with fans. It was all over the place. It was haphazardly slapped together, and it suffered for it.
Yeah.
It was just too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it made me feel like they did this show with Leslie Headland because they had to. Like
Mhm.
she's got something on them and she forced him to do it.
yeah.
Like,
Star
It,
Wars just needs Star Wars is like a franchise in sports that's been good a long time. But then when things go bad, you're like, you need new ownership. And I think the upper heads at Lucasfilm and people like Dave Filoni need to step away, which they'll never do, or need to be
right.
fired. And they need someone to come in who's like, guys, we need to sit down. Like a James Gunn. It doesn't have to be. But I'm just
Hmm.
using him as an example. He comes in and like, listen, you run DC now.
Hmm.
Great. Now run it. Take your time and run it. They need someone to come in and go, guys, what we're doing is not working. We can't just throw Star Wars, the name on it, and expect it to be good. Because now what we're doing is tarnishing everything because we're trying to backtrack everything. And like,
Right.
they made Jedi out to be so stupid in this show, and it didn't need to be that. Like,
And that's back to that. They were trying to make the Sith relatable, but you're not supposed to relate to the
not
Sith.
every bad guy needs to be relatable. It's
Right.
okay
There's
to just be
it's
evil.
sorry. It's
Like,
storytelling.
yeah.
It's storytelling. There's supposed to be a moral at the end of the story for a reason. Um Jesse has corrected me. There was Strange New Worlds this year. I guess it was at the beginning of the year, and Star Trek Discovery. I'm going to say this. I hate Star Trek Discovery. It is one of the it is the absolute worst Star Trek show. It
I'm with
is
you. I'm with
it
you.
is so awful. The writing is so terrible. There's no substance to it. Look, I have loved Star Trek since before I was even born, okay? It was bred into me. I love Star Trek. I can probably quote and name off things in Star Trek far better than I can Star Wars. But and I know that Star Trek is about utopian society and people coming together, and we're not supposed to
Wow.
focus on
Sounds
appearances and all
sounds
that
so
stuff.
woke.
It 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 really inherently is, but this show focuses only on that. It's focusing only on someone's gender identity, sexual identity, uh race, creed, whatever. It focuses only on that. It's made all the characters completely one dimensional. I can't form any kind of emotional connection to them because there's nothing to them. There's no
That was the biggest problem that I had. And Loki has an awesome versus question: Michael Burnham versus Osha and May. Who wins? That I would do a
oh
pay per view. But you know the thing about Discovery is that it felt like the writing forced you or was trying to force you to like the characters, but there was nothing to like about the
right.
characters. It was you know, every so often the group got together on the bridge and there was this camera movement with some music that kind of
Yeah.
uplifted your spirit, but then it was so empty because nobody cared
Look,
about these
did
characters.
I
It
tell
was
you what Dave said? He said it feels like the show is on the verge of tears all the
yes.
time. Like the
Yeah.
show's about to cry. Here's the thing about Michael. With the first two seasons weren't that bad. But she's supposed to be Spock's adopted sister. So she's raised by Vulcans. So the first season she's very, sure, she's very Vulcan, no emotions. But then season two happened, and all of a sudden she's about to cry all the time. She's unhinged emotions all the time. I'm like, excuse me,
Mm.
you're supposed to be raised by Vulcans. That just doesn't go away like magic. That's something that's a part of you.
Nick, Vulcans are the Spock people.
I know enough about as someone who
Oh,
doesn't watch Star Trek, but then you guys keep making cases for me not to watch any of it. It'd be like
exactly.
if you were to pitch someone on Star Wars now and be like, here, go back and watch, and be like, why? All everyone talks about is how much everything sucks now. But no, I
Too
did
funny.
grow. One of my good friends is a huge Trek guy, and he's like, start with the shows, and like
Mhm.
he's like, whether it's the first generation or the newer one, like the however they came out. But he goes, watch the older stuff first, definitely. Like get you
The
Yeah.
know,
original series is my go-to, like
Right.
my comfort food. Like
Mhm.
tonight, I'll probably watch, you know, one episode of TOS. It's just something that it's very comfortable to watch. It's only
Mhm.
3 seasons, but I'll kind of jump around and watch some of my favorites. Because there's also, you know, there's an aspect obviously of nostalgia with Star Trek because you really,
Mhm.
really connect with Spock, Kirk, and Bones. And those three characters right there are, it's like Luke, Leia, and Han.
Yeah.
Semper
I'm
Fi.
going to defend myself. I don't let me lose points with you, Crusher. I don't not like Star Trek. I just was not raised on it. And
And
much
that's okay.
like so many people, if your
There's
parents don't
enough
watch it,
sci-fi for all of us.
yes.
There's enough sci-fi for all of us. But Semper Fi Danny has a good point. She says, I'm all about diversity and identity, but there is a way to bring it in that is genuine and a way to bring it in as force. And she's absolutely correct. And this has been my biggest complaint with the portrayal of disabled characters in shows, especially amputees. If you notice, if you're watching a show, especially a sci-fi, fantasy, or horror show, if there's an amputee, you'll fucking know it because they will keep them in shorts 24/7, 365. Whether it's snow and ice outside or not, they're in shorts. And that's stupid because just because we're amputees doesn't mean we don't dress like normal human beings. That's just redonkulous. What they do is they make those characters one dimensional. There's nothing else to them. What do we know about this character? Well, he's a double amputee. Great. What's his favorite color? Doesn't matter. What's his childhood like? Doesn't matter. He's an amputee. Just look at those shiny metal legs and love him for just that. But that's insulting. That is insulting, and that is more bigoted than anything else because what you are saying is they're not human. That's all there is to them. That's all we need to know is this. And that's what Discovery did to people of different gender identities and sexual orientations and so on and so forth. They made that the centerpiece, the defining characteristic of that character. And that is insulting, that is discriminatory, and it's abusive. I don't care for it whatsoever. And that's how I really feel about that.
Well, and you're something like that, or your race, whatever it is, should never be the most talked of thing of your character. No. Like
we're human beings are onions. We have layers. Yeah. There's other things to us other than what body parts got chopped off or who we choose to bone.
I mean, in the Red 5 Network group chat, people don't even know I'm Mexican. Right? Right, Danny?
No, everyone knows you're Mexican.
Oh, okay. That's not my only defining quality, damn it.
Yeah, you also have a little Japanese too, so
that's true.
But Acolyte sucked. That's just
cut to the chase, exactly.
No, but it is the like, and again, also with budgets, that show should not have cost $250 million.
Oh no, so I found something out. I found something out from a former Lucasfilm employee, an actor, someone who's worked in Lucasfilm projects since like 2012. What Disney does when Disney starts a new Star Wars project, first of all, the budget for Star Wars is just Star Wars. They're like, here's all your money for Star Wars. That goes for every single show. Then if they go to shoot like in England, which they frequently do, in Great Britain or in Europe, they will buy the studio they're filming at. They'll just buy it. Ro, do you have a bag of chips?
No.
Super loud.
Sorry.
It was all I could hear. My brain couldn't handle it. So if they go and film somewhere outside of the US, they will buy the studio. Just outright buy it. They won't rent it or lease it like normal people do. They'll just buy it. And then they will prohibit any other production company, studio, what have you, from using that facility. So they've basically created a monopoly in Great Britain with the studios. So what they're doing is when they're creating these budgets for these shows, they are budgeting to purchase property at the same time. So in a way, it's kind of money laundering. The not all the money is actually going directly to the show. They're going to buy the studio first, and then whatever's left goes to the show.
Well, the money wasn't going to the writing team because that's some of the worst written stuff.
I bet you they had great donuts, though.
Yeah.
Wow, you had that ready to go. My reputation precedes me.
Ah, oh, this stuff is getting out of hand. Amanda Steinberg was convinced that everyone who didn't like the show was a racist. And that is dangerous. It is dangerous and it's just as abusive as it is to be a racist. Because what happens when you get accused of racism? You're canceled. You have nothing. Your whole life is done, buddy. You no job, nothing. You're done. It especially in Hollywood. Hollywood is like the worst place to get canceled because you will never work again, ever. So instead of actually saying, okay, first of all, everyone has different tastes. Not everything is for everyone. Some people are going to dislike something that other people really enjoy. So, screw that. No, we're not going to pay attention to that. And then instead of acknowledging that, okay, so I can see why you guys didn't like this. The writing wasn't exactly up to par. It was pretty messy. We marketed the first live action Jedi Wookiee and then had him on screen for a minute and a half before killing him off screen. After promoting him and creating press events just to show him off, instead of acknowledging all of those things that could have probably caused people not to like the show, she just blamed it entirely on the color of her skin, which is pretty racist towards herself, if you ask me, and then made this really horrible rap about it. Like back in our day, if you did something wild and out of pocket like that, the studios would fire you immediately because you're drawing too much negative attention to them. So that that turned a lot of people off. People who hadn't watched the show yet and were possibly on the fence. What just happened in my house? Okay. Both my monitors just completely shut off and
And you're frozen.
I
Yeah.
am frozen.
Yeah.
Good deal. Not sure if these are going to let me try turning them off and turning them back on again. Uh
It's weird. Everybody's been having streaming problems lately, and she's gone.
Well,
Bottom line, Acolyte sucked.
yes, pretty unanimous.
What do you have any other shows that you did not care for?
No, just really that one because I don't watch enough TV that if I don't like it right away, I'm just not going to watch it.
Mm,
So that's
yeah,
why it's hard to go, oh, did it suck? When it's like, well, I have to actually finish it to know for sure. Like there
right.
might be a show like, uh, like Dune Prophecy. I've enjoyed when I've watched it, but I need to get caught up on it because,
Yeah,
like everything with two little kids, I have like a 40-minute window
window,
of where
sure.
I'm not going to fall asleep at night. So it's like
Yeah,
you either got to be shorter or you got to be, like I really have to be like, okay, I need to watch it tonight.
hmm,
But I mean, that is a good show. I'm not saying that that would be on the bad list, but like if a show's bad after the first episode, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna, or second episode,
yeah,
I'm not really gonna watch it.
yeah. That's hard. I usually like to give a show, a chance. I mean,
Yeah,
I watched the Acolyte all the way through.
yeah.
We decided not to review like the last two episodes because it was just like whatever. It's not even worth it.
I think that the problem is they just they need to they really need to take their time, and I think not having movies has hurt the brand because Star Wars was always meant to be seen on the big screen, and
Yeah,
it's just like they rushed so many shows that like I just think Ahsoka wasn't well written. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi was like half well written, and then the other
sure.
half was like okay, like
Yeah,
the only thing that I think has
that's
been
too bad.
actually well written through the whole thing is Andor and
Yeah,
Mando for the most part, minus the third
I
season.
would be curious to see how Obi-Wan would have fared if it was a movie, if they stuck to their guns and said, you know what, let's make this a movie because they inserted all the the crap with the additional
See,
characters that really didn't really matter.
yeah, and I think the actress from Acolyte was using the stuff that the actress from Obi-Wan went through. Like her
Sure.
hate she got online was very real, and unfortunately, she saw a lot of the ugly side of obviously social media. But like her character, it wasn't so much that her character wasn't a decent character; it was just it didn't need to be in that show because you knew what was going to happen. You're like,
Right.
oh, that show started the precedent now of, oh, you can get stabbed with a lightsaber and survive, apparently. And then
Yeah.
show sets
And
has
then
been like,
everybody, yeah.
it's like, oh, you know, the tool that has been killing every single person it
Right.
touches for the history of.
Just a flesh wound.
Oh, you're like, oh, right in the stomach. It's okay.
Yeah.
I hit you in a part of the stomach where
Right.
apparently it didn't kill you.
Listen,
And Danny's back.
the shoulders a tricky area too. You know, sometimes it can
Sure.
kill you. Sometimes you're perfectly fine.
I always
You never
assumed
know.
though straight through the gut was meant you were dead. And apparently some people could get it multiple times and they're like, well, you know, sometimes just miss that artery by an inch. You're okay.
Mhm.
Missed it
By the way,
That much.
By the way, Danny, while you were gone, Nick and I got you another 10,000 subscribers and a
Hot
couple of more
dog.
puppies.
Hot dog.
You should leave your stream more often.
Yes. Thank you, electrical issues. Thank you, Amarin. But we'll take that as a hint and kind of wrap her up. Thank you, guys. So we all agree The Acolyte was the worst show of 2024. Basically, is what's happening. We've talked about some great stuff today. Great movies, great shows. I don't care what Ro says. You should check out Three Body Problem because despite what Rian Johnson did to Star Wars, Three Body Problem is probably where he belongs. That's where he belongs, not Star Wars.
I think he belongs more at the bottom of a nuclear reactor, like his character did.
Oh, man.
So angry. You should make a rap about it in black and white and
I will
gyrate aggressively to it. I want to thank my guests for their awesome lists of best and worst of 2024. Ro, tell people where they can find you and stuff.
You can find me wherever you find your other favorite podcast. Just turn over to your smart speaker and tell Siri or Alexa to play the latest Scare Scuttlebutt podcast. Available, like I said, we're everywhere.
And you can also check out red5.bio.link because we are powered by Red 5. We do look good in red. We have so many content creators and podcasts that if you can't find something that sparks your interest, then unfortunately you are boring and should fix that. Nick, tell everyone in the chat where they can find you.
Yes, at NickFlixPod on Twitter or X, whatever you'd like to call it, and Instagram. And then, on Apple, Spotify. I think I'm on a couple other platforms, but those are the main ones. And I try to do a new episode every 2 weeks, and I've been pretty good at that. Might take a break here and there for like a few weeks, but not sure yet. But yeah, I should have one coming out. Yeah. Well, I try to record like 3 in a row, so that way then I could take like a month off of not recording and be like, okay, I'll drop. Yeah. But I will have one in a week and a half for our best of 2024. So yeah. And then if you're ever interested in being a guest, shoot me a DM and we could talk about it. So, but other
I
than
might do that.
Yeah.
I might do that. So thank you very much, fellas. You did very well on your lists. In case you were needing some validation, there it is. You both get A's. You get A's, and you both have given me some ideas on some stuff I need to check out. Because, like I said, I have stuff playing all day, every day. I eventually run out and just start rewatching old stuff. So it's nice to get some suggestions on some new. If you guys want to follow me on social media, I am literally everywhere. I'm like a terrible venereal disease. I'm everywhere and you cannot get rid of me. But if you would like the links to all of those different platforms, you can check out in the description below, or you can go to comicsan.squarespace.com. All the links to all the platforms are there. And there's also my portfolio gallery of different special effects and beauty looks I have done. There's information on the Belgium project. There's pretty much everything really is on the website. So you should just check that out. All my reviews, all my written reviews are there as well. If you want to support the channel, amazing. Thank you. Because this stuff actually is not free and it takes a lot of time. The best way is actually the easiest and the freest way. And that is just hitting the like button, subscribing if you're new, ringing the notification bell, maybe sharing the link to the shows, or leaving a comment down below. Just say hello. But that's the best way to support the channel. It tells our almighty algorithm overlords that you like me. You really like me.
Or
But if
buy
you
a
would,
mug.
or buy a mug from the Etsy store right there. We have Etsy and we have Redbubble, but most of my stuff goes on Etsy because Etsy doesn't give me a hard time about stuff. So I've got some great Dune prophecy designs that are actually really popular right now, as well as some skeleton crew designs as well. But I also have a Patreon. There are 3 different tiers starting as little as $3 a month, and you get some behind the scenes, some outtakes, ask me anything. You can request breakdowns and even more. So and you get free merch every 3 months for your first year of subscribership. So check out the Patreon if you're feeling froggy. Also, I am sponsored by Apotheosis Comics and Lounge in St. Louis. If you are in or around the St. Louis area and you love comic books and booze, I highly recommend you check it out because it is a comic book bar. A comic book bar. I'm totally serious. They have arcade games, they have apparel, collectibles, literally everything in every comic book you could imagine. If you're not in or around the St. Louis area, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry. Just go to shopapotheosis.com/comics and use code comics and at checkout for 10% off your purchase. They have subscription boxes for comic books, people. Okay. I know your sister and your grandma get the Ipsy and the makeup and the bath products and stuff. This is for you. This is comic books, apparel, collectibles, games, everything right there. So just go to that link, use code comics and at checkout for 10% off, and you're good to go. Also, if you need glasses, I have saved you 10%. The link is in the description below. Go crazy, guys. They have prescription glasses, sunglasses, everything. But you get 10% off thanks to me. So you're welcome. Or you could just scan that QR code over by Row and it'll take you to buymeacoffee.com/comics and MUA. And you can tip me as little or as much as you like. Dealer's choice, my friends. Thank you so much to the chat, to everyone who popped in and said hello.
Chat
Thank
was
you
wonderful.
chat was absolutely wonderful. This is probably one of the most active chats we have had in a while. So I'm really grateful. This is the end of 2024 for Comics and it's been a heck of a year. Thank you guys. We're up to over 3,330 subscribers now. Like we're over that. So that's super awesome. I cannot thank you guys enough. I have no idea why you like watching me that much, but you do, and I appreciate it. So thank you for giving me something to do in my retirement. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Ro, and I appreciate you, Nick. Thank you so much. Thank you. But until then, I've been Danny. He's been Ro, and he's been Nick, and you've been awesome. But make sure to check under your beds tonight because it's not working.
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you!